They say the river once ran clear. That before the curse, before the hunger, before the blood, it reflected the moon like polished glass. But that was centuries ago, when the Vale name still meant something. Before love became a weapon. Before the first betrayal. The night it began, thunder rolled over the mountains and the sky tore itself apart. Lightning split the willow by the riverbank, the great tree that marked the Vale estate, and the storm that followed would never truly end. Even now, when the air grows cold and the moon burns red, people swear they can hear the river whispering names. 2 names. Always the same. Evelyn. Lucien. It began with Clara Vale, a girl born under a blood moon. She was quiet, with eyes too old for her years, and she loved her brother more than she loved the world. Lucien was everything Clara wasn't, a dreamer, a painter, a man who believed beauty could heal anything. But beauty had a price. The Vale family was dying, their lands withering, their name collapsing under debt. Their mother was ill, their father already buried. Clara prayed every night for salvation. And one night, something answered. She met the woman by the river. Pale as moonlight, dressed in silver that shimmered without light. Her eyes were the color of eternity, the kind of gaze that saw not what you were, but what you would become. You love him, the woman said. Enough to give anything. Everything, Clara whispered. Then I will give him forever. Clara didn't understand the cost until it was too late. The woman's name was Isolde, the first of the river-born, a vampire queen who had been bound beneath the willow by her own creator. She needed blood of love and sorrow to wake. Clara's wish gave her exactly that. When dawn broke, Lucien was gone. His reflection no longer appeared in the mirror. And Clara's prayers turned to screams. Isolde's laughter echoed through the house like thunder. You begged for eternity, she said. Now your brother shall never know death, nor peace. Lucien awoke 3 nights later. His heart no longer beat, yet he could feel everything, the rush of life, the scent of blood, the endless ache of hunger. He wept when he realized what Clara had done. But Isolde was merciless. One cannot love without blood, she said. And one cannot drink without consequence. She cursed the Vale bloodline so that every daughter born after Clara would carry the echo of her sin, marked by the river, haunted by hunger. And when Lucien fled into the darkness, Clara threw herself into the river, hoping to drown her shame. But the river did not take her. It kept her. Generations passed. The story turned to myth. But the river never forgot. Every few decades, a girl would dream of a willow and a man with eyes like dying stars. She would hear her name whispered from the water, and tragedy would always follow. Until Evelyn Vale. Born centuries after Clara's sin, Evelyn grew up believing the stories were nothing more than superstition, bedtime warnings to keep children from the river. But the curse was patient. It waited. It watched. And on the night she first saw the willow, the same tree that had stood since the world was young, she also saw him. A man pale as moonlight. Eyes like sorrow itself. Watching her from across the water. You shouldn't be here, he whispered. Why, she asked. Because every Vale who comes to this river dies for love. She didn't listen. The river has claimed many names, but only 2 are ever spoken by the wind. The ones bound by love. The ones who could never let go. Lucien and Evelyn Vale. The cursed and the redeemer. The hunger and the heart. The beginning and the end. And if you stand by the willow when the moon turns red. If you listen closely enough to the water's sigh. You'll hear them still. Whispering through time. Through blood. Through forever. We were never meant for eternity, but eternity remembered us. Welcome to Black Vale, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. Ravencourt was a town that looked beautiful from afar, cobblestone streets, flickering streetlights, and an old river that shimmered like polished glass under the moon. But up close, the town had a weight to it, a silence that lingered in its corners, and a sadness that lived in its air. Evelyn Hart had lived there all her life, and she'd learned one thing: silence usually meant secrets. As a journalism student, she had a habit of chasing what others avoided. Her professor said she was reckless, her friends called her brave. But Evelyn wasn't looking for trouble, she was looking for truth. And lately, the truth had been leading her to the river. Every few weeks, someone went missing. A jogger. A night shift worker. A stray animal torn apart in the park. The police blamed wolves or gangs. But Evelyn had seen the patterns. The disappearances always happened near the same place, the old Ravencourt Bridge. So on a chilly October evening, when fog rolled low over the river and the world turned silver beneath the streetlights, Evelyn stood there with her camera, waiting. The bridge groaned when the wind passed through. Somewhere in the distance, church bells tolled midnight. That was when she saw him. At first, she thought he was a statue, a tall, still figure standing by the willow tree that leaned over the water. He wore a long black coat, the kind people didn't wear anymore, and his hair was dark, almost blue under the light. He wasn't moving. Just watching the river. Something about him made her breath catch. He didn't belong there. He didn't belong anywhere she knew. Evelyn hesitated, then forced herself forward. "Hey," she called, her voice echoing off the water. "You shouldn't be out here this late. The bridge isn't safe." The men turned slowly. For a moment, all she saw were his eyes, deep red-brown, glowing faintly like wine caught in firelight. "I could say the same to you," he said softly, his voice low, elegant, and calm, too calm. She tightened her grip on her camera. "I'm working. Journalism project." In the middle of the night. His lips curved slightly, like he found it amusing. "I like my stories quiet." He studied her, eyes flickering with something unreadable, curiosity, maybe. Or hunger. The thought made her uneasy, though she couldn't explain why. Evelyn shifted her bag. "You live around here?" He gave a slow nod, though something in his tone betrayed the lie. "For a long time." The fog thickened, wrapping them both in white. She noticed then that his breath didn't mist in the cold. Her own came out in sharp puffs. His chest didn't rise or fall. "You know," he said after a moment, "people have been disappearing near this river." "I'm aware," she said carefully. "Then maybe you should stay away. And let the mystery go unsolved." She lifted her chin. "Not happening." He smiled, not kindly, but with something like sorrow. "Some mysteries are better left buried." The words sent a chill through her. But she couldn't look away. He started to walk past her, his movement so smooth it almost seemed he glided rather than stepped. As he passed, the faint scent of rain and something metallic, like old blood, brushed her senses. "Wait," she called out. "What's your name?" He paused, the fog curling around him like smoke. "Lucien." "Lucien what?" He looked back at her, and though he was a few paces away, she swore his voice was right beside her ear when he spoke. "Lucien Vale." Then he disappeared into the mist. One blink, and he was gone. Evelyn stood alone on the bridge, heart racing. She turned the camera back on, but the lens was cracked. The screen flickered, static, then an image. For half a second, she saw him, standing where he had been, looking straight into the camera. And his eyes, this time, weren't brown at all. They were crimson. Ravencourt looked different in daylight. The fog that made the town ghostly at night gave way to soft sunlight that filtered through autumn leaves. Still, the river never quite lost its gloom, it ran dark, like ink beneath the bridges. Evelyn sat by the window of Luna's Brew, a small coffee shop tucked between a record store and an antique bookstore. She'd been there since morning, staring at the photos from the night before. Most of the images were useless, distorted by fog, the flash swallowed by mist. But one stood out, a faint silhouette by the willow tree, the curve of a jaw, the glint of eyes that almost seemed to glow. She zoomed in again and again, but the pixels only blurred. "Who are you?" she murmured to herself. "Careful," said a voice behind her. "If you stare at something long enough, it might start staring back." Evelyn froze. That voice. Low, velvet smooth, familiar. She turned, and there he was. Lucien Vale. The stranger from the bridge. Standing right behind her table as if he'd materialized out of thin air. He wore the same long coat, but in daylight, his presence felt different, more human, yet still wrong somehow. His skin was too perfect. His eyes, though hidden behind dark sunglasses, carried a strange heaviness, as though he'd seen centuries pass. Evelyn's voice faltered. You followed me. He smiled faintly. You left your notebook on the bridge. She looked down, and there it was, resting in his hand. Her worn leather notebook, damp around the edges. Her heart skipped. How did you? I didn't even notice. I told you, he said, setting it on the table, the bridge isn't safe. He moved with quiet grace, every gesture deliberate, controlled. He took the seat across from her uninvited, and somehow, it felt as though the whole café dimmed when he sat. Do you always appear out of nowhere? She asked, trying to sound casual. Only when I'm curious, he replied. About me. His lips curved. About why a woman would chase ghosts when the living world already has enough monsters. Evelyn blinked. That's poetic. You a writer or something? A painter, he said simply. Once. She tilted her head. What happened? The world changed. I didn't. There was something about the way he said it, not metaphorical, not wistful, but literal. She almost laughed, but the look in his eyes silenced her. A waitress came by to take their order. Lucien didn't even glance at the menu. Just water, he said. You sure? The coffee's good here, Evelyn said. He smiled faintly. I don't drink coffee. When the waitress left, Evelyn leaned closer, lowering her voice. So, Lucien Vale, where exactly do you live? You said you've been in Ravencourt a long time. Longer than most remember, he replied. That's vague. He studied her for a moment, then said quietly, You wouldn't believe me if I told you. I'm a journalist, she said. Believing the unbelievable is kind of my job. Then maybe you should find a safer job. There was that warning tone again, soft, almost tender, but threaded with something dark. Something ancient. A cold draft blew in as the door opened. The sunlight dimmed, clouds rolling in too quickly for comfort. Lucien turned his head slightly toward the window, as if sensing something in the air. His posture stiffened. For a moment, his expression cracked, a flicker of pain, or memory. You should go home before dark, he murmured. Why? Planning to vanish again, she teased, though her heart was beating too fast. I vanished to protect people like you, he said simply. Her smile faltered. People like me. Alive. Before she could respond, he stood. Enjoy your coffee, Evelyn Hart. How do you know my? But he was already at the door. And just like the night before, when she blinked, he was gone. The waitress came back a moment later, setting down the untouched glass of water. It was still full, but the condensation was frozen. Evelyn stared at it, the frost creeping in delicate veins across the surface. She didn't sleep that night. She couldn't stop replaying his words in her mind, I vanished to protect people like you. Protect her from what? Or, from whom? Outside, the wind howled across the bridge. The river shimmered black beneath the moon, whispering her name. Ravencourt was drowning in silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that made you feel watched. The kind that settled after screams. It began with whispers. Someone's dog found dead near the riverbank. A fisherman gone missing. Then, 2 nights later, a woman vanished walking home from work. All in the same area. All near the willow tree. Evelyn kept her board filled with red strings and photos, her dorm room looking like a crime scene itself. Notes scrawled in black marker covered the walls, dates, patterns, possible witnesses, blood trails, broken watches. Her roommate, Zara, stopped asking questions weeks ago. You're obsessed, Zara said one night. I'm close, Evelyn replied without looking up. Something ties them all together, every last one. Or maybe it's just bad luck. Evelyn paused. No. Not luck. Someone's choosing them. She didn't mention Lucien. She couldn't explain him without sounding insane. The next night, she went back to the bridge. The fog was thicker than before, curling low over the river. The streetlights flickered like dying fireflies. Her camera trembled in her hand, but her curiosity burned hotter than fear. When she reached the willow, she noticed something new, symbols carved into the stone rail, half hidden beneath moss. Sharp, looping sigils that looked ancient. She crouched to snap a picture. Don't touch that. The voice came from behind her. Smooth. Familiar. Unmistakable. Lucien stepped out of the mist, coat unbuttoned, eyes darker than before. The air around him felt colder, heavier, as though he carried the night with him. "What are these?" she asked, ignoring his warning. "Remnants," he said quietly. "From people who tried to summon what they didn't understand." Her pulse quickened. "You mean, this has happened before?" He looked away. "Many times." She turned her flashlight on him. "You knew. You knew about the disappearances. I told you to stop digging. You can't expect me to just walk away. You don't know what you're walking into." His voice echoed across the water, low but trembling with something that sounded like fear. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the river moved, black and endless. Evelyn finally whispered, "Then tell me. Tell me what you are." Lucien's gaze softened. "The truth would only break you. Try me." He stepped closer, the fog parting around him. He was inches from her now, close enough that she could see the faint shimmer of red behind his irises, the way his chest barely moved when he breathed. "You really don't see it, do you?" he murmured. "You think you're chasing a monster. But the monster found you first." A flicker of pain, then he turned and vanished into the mist. Evelyn stood alone, heart hammering. The night pressed around her, thick and suffocating. Then she heard it. A whisper, soft, wet, inhuman. From under the bridge. She lifted her camera. The flash went off. For a split second, the river lit up white, and she saw eyes. Dozens of them, gleaming just beneath the surface. Watching. She stumbled back, heart in her throat. Her flashlight slipped, falling into the water. The glow faded, and the eyes disappeared. She ran all the way home. When she developed her film the next morning, every photo was blank. Except one. In the last frame, standing where she'd seen the eyes, was Lucien, his face pale, his mouth stained with red. That night, Evelyn didn't dream of the bridge. She dreamed of him, standing in her room, whispering her name as her heart slowed to a stop. When she woke, her window was open. And her notebook was gone. Evelyn didn't sleep for 2 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the eyes beneath the river, a shimmer of light, a suggestion of fangs. And in every dream, Lucien stood above the water, watching her drown without moving to help. She told herself it was exhaustion. Fear. Stress from chasing stories that belonged in ghost novels, not the real world. But she couldn't shake the feeling that Lucien was the key to it all. So she did what journalists do best, she started digging. She went to the library archives, chasing mentions of the name Lucien Vale. The records went back nearly 2 centuries, old maps, property deeds, obituaries. She didn't expect to find anything. But she did. A yellowed newspaper clipping from 1889. Local painter Lucien Vale reported missing after mysterious fire at Vale Manor. No body recovered. Her throat went dry. The photo beneath it showed a young man standing beside an easel. The face was unmistakable, the same sharp jawline, the same eyes. It couldn't be possible. The picture was over 100 years old. She snapped a photo of the article and left the library with her hands trembling. That night, she found him waiting outside her apartment building. No sound. No footsteps. Just there, leaning against the lamppost like he had every right to exist in her world. "You shouldn't walk alone at this hour," he said softly. "You seem to say that a lot," she shot back, forcing calm. "What are you doing here?" "Making sure you're safe." "From what?" "From you." That made him pause. For the first time, she saw something flicker across his expression, hurt, maybe. Or guilt. "You've been following me," she continued. "You knew my name before I told you. You show up at the bridge, the cafe, my building. What do you want from me, Lucien?" He stepped forward slowly, the light catching his face. His eyes looked darker than ever, not glowing now, but deep, endless. "You're asking the wrong question," he murmured. "Then what's the right one? Why do you want to know me?" The question silenced her. Because she didn't know. Because some part of her, the reckless, lonely, curious part, needed to understand him. Because he looked like a man who carried the weight of forever and still found time to warn her away. But she said none of that. Maybe I'm just good at finding patterns, she said instead. Then find this one, he said. Every time I get close to someone, they disappear. He turned to leave, but she grabbed his sleeve. His coat was damp, not from rain, but from something thicker, darker. She looked down. Her fingers were stained red. He followed her gaze and froze. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. His voice, when he spoke, was low, almost broken. You shouldn't have touched me tonight. Before she could reply, he stepped back into the shadows. His form dissolved, not vanished, but blurred, like a reflection rippling on water. The street went silent again. Only the soft hum of streetlights remained. Evelyn rushed upstairs, hard hammering, scrubbing her hands in the sink. But the red didn't wash off. It wasn't blood. It shimmered faintly under the bathroom light, silver red, like mercury. She sat down hard on the floor, the truth clawing at her throat. Lucien wasn't human. She didn't know what he was yet. But whatever he'd touched, whatever he'd become, it was older than the town, older than the river, and it was getting closer. That night, she opened her laptop. Her newest camera photos from the bridge loaded automatically, she hadn't even checked them yet. The first few were normal, the fog, the water, the carved symbols. Then came the last one. Lucien again. Standing in the same place, facing the same direction. Only this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him, in the fog, were silhouettes, faint, human-shaped, but hollow-eyed and pale as bone. Watching him. Watching her. She slammed the laptop shut, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The whisper came a moment later. Soft. Outside her window. Go back to the river. Evelyn didn't move. Didn't breathe. But something told her the voice wasn't Lucien's this time. And something else, something deeper, told her that if she went, she wouldn't come back the same. The next morning, the world felt unreal. Evelyn sat by her window, staring at the streak of pale light slipping across her carpet. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. The voice from the night before still echoed in her ears, go back to the river. She tried to convince herself it was exhaustion. A hallucination. But part of her, the part that had seen Lucien's reflection blur, the part that still smelled the metallic scent of blood, knew better. So she went back. By the time she reached the willow, the fog had thickened again, curling low like smoke. The air stung with salt and iron. She crouched beside the water and ran her fingers across the symbols she'd seen before. Something pulsed beneath the stone, faint, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Then she saw it, a narrow path of broken stones leading under the bridge. It looked too deliberate to be natural. She hesitated only a moment before stepping into the darkness. The air grew colder with each step. The smell of wet earth and decay filled her nose. And then, she found it. A door. Iron. Old. Half buried in mud. Carved into it was a single word, Vale. Evelyn. She turned so fast she nearly slipped. Lucien stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable. He looked paler than usual, his veins faintly visible beneath his skin. What are you doing here? She demanded. I should ask you the same. I'm following the truth. The truth, he said bitterly, is a grave you're already digging. He stepped closer, his voice softening. You shouldn't be here, not tonight. He'll smell you. Who? Lucien's gaze flicked toward the water. The one who cursed me. He pressed his hand against the door. The metal burned red where his palm touched it. Slowly, it creaked open. Beyond it was a chamber, ancient, flooded halfway with black water. The walls were carved with names. Dozens of them. All scratched over, except one that glowed faintly, Lucien Vale. This is where I died, he whispered. And where I was remade. Evelyn's breath caught. Remade into what? Lucien looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't hide what he was. His pupils dilated until the black swallowed the color. His teeth lengthened, delicate, sharp. The air shimmered around him, a whisper of power and pain. Into something that lives on blood, he said quietly. And regrets every drop. She should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to. But she couldn't move. Who did this to you? She whispered. Her name was Isolde, he said. She called herself my savior. My eternal lover. But eternity isn't love, it's hunger. She feeds on souls bound to her curse, and she never forgets what's hers. He took a step closer. And now she knows your name. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. Why me? I didn't do anything. You followed me. You found me. That's enough. He reached out, but stopped just before touching her. His fingers hovered inches from her skin. You have to leave Ravencourt. Tonight. Before the sun sets. I can't just leave. You have to. His voice cracked, raw and desperate. You think I'm the monster in this story, Evelyn, but she's the one who writes the ending. The shadows shifted behind him. A faint laugh echoed from somewhere deep in the chamber, soft, melodic, and cruel. Lucien's head snapped up. His expression changed, fear. True, bone-deep fear. She's awake. The water rippled. From the darkness rose a figure, tall, cloaked, her eyes glowing a sickly crimson. Her voice was smooth as silk and sharp as ice. Lucien, she purred. You brought me a gift. Evelyn stumbled back. Lucien moved between them instantly, his hand glowing faintly with that same red shimmer. Run, he said. But Evelyn couldn't. She was rooted to the ground, staring at the creature who looked almost human, too beautiful, too perfect, like something sculpted to hide rot beneath gold. Isolde smiled, her fangs glinting in the dim light. Still trying to protect them, she asked him. You never learn. Then she vanished. Lucien spun, too late. The shadows lunged. Evelyn screamed as he shoved her backward, the world blurring into darkness and water. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying by the willow. The fog was gone. The sun was rising. Lucien was nowhere to be found. On her wrist, in blood that wasn't hers, was a mark. A small, perfect circle with a single line through it. And from the river below came a voice, faint but unmistakable. Now you're part of the story too. Morning light painted Ravencourt in pale gold, but Evelyn felt none of its warmth. Her skin still burned where the mark lay on her wrist, a perfect crimson circle, almost too neat to be human. Every few minutes, she swore she felt it pulse. She had washed it, covered it, even tried to convince herself it was some hallucination born of fear. But it wasn't. It moved beneath her skin. She returned to the bridge that afternoon. The willow still swayed in the cold breeze, but the iron door under it, the one Lucien had opened, was gone. Completely. As if it had never existed. The river flowed calmly, erasing every trace of what had happened. Evelyn sank to her knees. He can't be gone, she whispered. But the fog didn't answer. That night, she dug deeper, beyond archives and clippings, into the kind of records most people didn't know existed. Burial logs. Property inheritances. Lineage reports. It was past midnight when she found it, a name she hadn't expected to see. Clara Vale. Born 1872. Died 1901. Sister to Lucien Vale. And below it, handwritten in ink faded to brown. Married to Dr. Henry Ward, 1893. One daughter, Genevieve Ward. Evelyn froze. Genevieve Ward, her grandmother's name. Her stomach turned cold. The Vale bloodline wasn't history to her. It was family. The moment she read it aloud, the lights flickered. Her laptop screen glitched. For a second, the reflection on the screen wasn't her own. Lucien's eyes stared back. She gasped and stumbled backward. The window burst open, wind tearing through the room. Papers flew like feathers. Then, in the corner, she saw movement, a figure standing in the shadows. Lucien, she whispered. He stepped forward slowly. His clothes were soaked, his face pale as ash. He looked like a man pulled from his own grave. You shouldn't have looked for me, he said softly. You disappeared. I had to. I thought you were dead. He gave a hollow smile. Death doesn't want me anymore. Evelyn showed him the mark on her wrist. What is this? His expression darkened. He reached for her hand, hesitated, then traced the edge of the mark with his fingertip. The touch sent a shiver through her arm, cold, electric, wrong. She's claimed you, he murmured. Isolde. He nodded. She bound your blood to mine. You carry part of the Vale curse now. What does that mean? It means, he swallowed hard. If she takes me, she takes you too. Evelyn's voice broke. Why me, Lucien? Why my family? He looked at her then, truly looked, and for a second she saw centuries of guilt behind his eyes. Because your blood began this. Lucien walked to the window, the wind tugging at his coat. When I was human, he began, my sister Clara made a deal with Isolde. She wanted eternal life for our family. She thought it was salvation. Instead, it became a chain. I was her first offering. Evelyn's heart twisted. And Clara's line. Isolde let it live, to keep her connected to this world. To feed her when the hunger returned. Evelyn's pulse quickened. So every few generations. She takes one. The realization hit her like cold water. And I'm next. Lucien turned to her, eyes filled with anguish. Not if I stop her. He moved closer, his voice low. You have to trust me, Evelyn. There's a way to end the curse, but it will cost me everything. I don't want you to die. I already did, once. He reached out, brushing her cheek with trembling fingers. It wasn't affection, not yet. It was sorrow. A silent apology for the doom that followed him everywhere. Stay away from the river, he whispered. If she calls you, don't answer. Then, before she could speak, he vanished again, leaving nothing but cold air and a faint echo of his words. You're the last Vale. And the last chance. When Evelyn looked at her wrist again, the mark had changed. The circle had opened, a thin, perfect line running through its center like a slit eye. And when she blinked, she could swear it blinked back. Sleep came for Evelyn like drowning. One moment, she was staring at her ceiling, the next, she was somewhere else entirely, beneath the same willow, but the world was different. The sky was bruised purple, the air thick with ash. The bridge was new, the stone uncracked, and a woman stood by the water. A woman with Evelyn's face. Her dress was of another time, long sleeves, lace collar, hair pinned with pearls. The name formed in Evelyn's mind before the woman even spoke. Clara Vale. She knelt by the river, whispering to someone just out of sight. Evelyn moved closer, and the fog shifted to reveal a tall figure, pale, graceful, and too still. Isolde. Please, Clara said. He's dying. He's all I have left. Death is a door, Isolde murmured, and doors can be opened. But what will you give me in return? Clara hesitated. Take my life. My soul. Anything. Isolde smiled, slow, knowing. Your soul will rot in time. I want something that lasts. Her hand brushed Clara's cheek, and Evelyn could feel it, cold as glass, sharp as ice. Your blood, Isolde whispered. Your lineage. Every drop that bears your name will be mine to claim. Clara's lips trembled. If it saves him, then yes. Isolde leaned close, her voice a silk thread around Clara's throat. Oh, it will save him. But not the way you think. The world twisted. The river darkened. Evelyn found herself standing in a grand hall lit by candles that burned black. Lucien lay on a stone table, lifeless. Clara stood beside him, tears streaking her face. Isolde's fangs gleamed. This is mercy, she said. He will never die. Never age. Never leave you. And with that, she bit him. Evelyn screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the dream. She felt Clara's agony, her desperate relief turning into horror as Lucien's body convulsed, his veins turning black, his eyes flashing open, red and empty. When he sat up, the first thing he saw wasn't Clara. It was Isolde. Welcome back, my beloved, Isolde whispered. Clara's scream echoed through the chamber, the sound of love breaking. Evelyn's vision shifted again, time racing forward in flashes. Clara hiding in shadow, running through the woods with a child in her arms. Lucien, lost and bloodstained, calling her name but unable to step into daylight. Isolde's laughter echoing through the trees like wind through bones. Clara built a new life far from Ravencourt, married Dr. Henry Ward, and gave birth to Genevieve. But every night, she heard whispering in her sleep. Your debt is not paid. The river remembers. Blood calls to blood. When her husband found her scratching symbols into the nursery walls, he sent for a priest. By then, Clara was already fading, pale, trembling, her eyes rimmed with crimson. The last words she wrote before she died were found in her journal. The Vale line must end, or she will never sleep. Evelyn woke with a scream. Her room was freezing. Her window was wide open. On her nightstand lay a single dried rose, blackened and brittle, and beside it, her grandmother's locket. It hadn't been there before. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a faded photo of a young woman, Clara, and, behind it, another piece of paper folded so small it was almost hidden. Evelyn unfolded it. A single line written in faded ink. I did this for love. Don't make my mistake. The mark on Evelyn's wrist began to burn again, fiercer than before. Her reflection in the mirror wavered. For a heartbeat, she saw not herself, but Clara, eyes wide, lips parted, whispering her name. Then the whisper changed. It was Isolde's voice this time, cold and sweet. Blood remembers, Evelyn. It's your turn. Evelyn clutched the locket to her chest, trembling. The hunger wasn't Lucien's anymore. It was hers, the pull, the ache, the whisper of something ancient inside her veins awakening. And from somewhere deep in the night, she heard Lucien's voice, faint, pleading. Don't let her in. Days bled into nights. Evelyn stopped counting them. The mark on her wrist had begun to spread, veins darkening, webbing up her arm like ink beneath glass. Some mornings it faded, other times it burned like fire, glowing faintly crimson when the moon rose. And always, always, she heard the whisper. Come home to the river. She tried to ignore it, buried herself in work, turned up music, avoided mirrors. But every time she blinked, she saw flashes of the willow, the black water, and eyes that weren't her own staring back. She hadn't seen Lucien in a week. Not since the dream. Not since she'd awoken with blood on her hands and no memory of where it came from. It happened on a Thursday. Evelyn was walking home from work when she passed a man bleeding from a cut on his palm. It was nothing, a paper cut, a scratch, but the scent hit her like lightning. Her pulse slowed. The world dulled. She could hear the blood in his veins. The voice inside her cooed softly. Just a taste. He won't even feel it. She stumbled backward, shaking, gasping for breath. She ran until her lungs burned, until she was home again, curled in the dark. When she opened her eyes, the mirror above her dresser was fogged with breath, not hers. A single word appeared in the glass. Thirst. He came to her that night. When she opened the door, he was standing there, drenched, wild-eyed, like he'd clawed his way out of a grave. You're changing, he said. You left me. I was trying to stop this. His voice cracked. He stepped closer, trembling, as though being near her hurt. She's inside you now. I can smell her. Evelyn backed away. Then tell me how to get her out. There's only one way, he said. Through me. She shook her head. You're not making sense. I gave her my soul to protect you. But she bound us together instead. If I end myself, the curse dies with me. Her heart dropped. You die. I already did. This time, it would be peace. Before she could answer, she felt it, a tug deep in her chest. The same whisper returned, louder now, echoing through her skull. Come, my child. Come to the river. The room darkened. Water began dripping from the ceiling, pooling around her feet. The air smelled of iron. Lucien grabbed her shoulders. Fight her. I can't, she cried, her voice breaking. She's inside me. Her pupils dilated, her pulse slowed to almost nothing. For a moment, she wasn't Evelyn anymore, she was Clara, and Isolde was waiting beyond the willow, arms open. Lucien pressed his forehead against hers, his voice shaking. I won't lose you. Not again. The window shattered, a rush of wind and darkness filled the room. Isolde's voice poured through like water through cracks in a dam. Give her to me, Lucien. She's mine by blood. Lucien turned toward the voice, his eyes blazing red. Take me instead. Isolde laughed. You've offered that 1,000 times, beloved. But she's the one I want now. The last veil. The perfect vessel. The shadows rose, curling around Evelyn's body. She screamed, not in fear, but in pain, as the mark on her arm flared, spreading across her skin like molten fire. Lucien did the only thing left to do. He bit his wrist, blood dark as night, and pressed it to her lips. Drink, he whispered. Let my blood fight hers. Evelyn tried to resist, but instinct took over. The taste hit her tongue, iron, sorrow, memory. The hunger inside her roared awake. Light exploded behind her eyes. She saw everything, Lucien's death, Clara's bargain, centuries of torment, Isolde's smile frozen in time. Then, silence. When she opened her eyes again, she was standing beneath the willow. Lucien was beside her, weak, pale, his chest barely rising. The river was alive, black and churning, whispering in voices she couldn't understand. Isolde rose from the water, her face pale and perfect, her eyes burning. You can't kill what was never alive, she said. He belongs to me. Evelyn stepped forward. Then take me instead. Lucien's hand tightened weakly on hers. No. But it was too late. The mark on her wrist glowed bright red. The wind howled. The river surged upward, wrapping around her body like a living thing. Isolde reached out, and screamed. Evelyn's blood burned. The curse turned back on its master, centuries of hunger breaking like glass. Lucien's voice reached her through the chaos, soft, fading. You did it. When dawn came, the river was calm again. The willow swayed gently in the morning breeze. Evelyn lay by the water's edge, pale but breathing. Lucien was gone. No body. No shadow. Only the locket she'd worn, lying open beside her, the picture of Clara now blank. She closed her eyes. The mark on her wrist had vanished. But in the reflection of the river, her eyes glowed faintly red. The town mourned the storm that no one could explain. 3 houses by the river had been washed away, trees uprooted, and yet no one could find a trace of rain. Only mist. Cold, red-tinted mist that lingered for days. Evelyn wandered through it, numb. She told herself Lucien was gone, that he'd finally found peace, but she could still feel him sometimes, like the echo of a heartbeat that wasn't her own. When she brushed her fingers across her neck, she could still feel the phantom warmth of his blood. She didn't need food anymore. Or sleep. And mirrors, she'd stopped using them. Not because she cast no reflection, but because when she looked too long, she saw someone else staring back. Clara. A week after the river's rage, Evelyn found a letter pressed into the pages of her mother's old book of poetry. The handwriting was sharp and elegant, not hers. My dearest Eve. If you are reading this, then I have failed. But if you remember me, then perhaps all is not lost. You must understand, the curse was never in the blood. It was in the longing. In the endless hunger for what we could not keep. If I am gone, do not look for me. I will be wherever the moonlight touches the water. I will be the silence between your heartbeats. Love is the cruelest kind of immortality. Lucien. Tears slipped down her cheeks, staining the ink. Her fingers trembled, and she whispered into the empty room. Then I'll love you until silence ends. That night, she dreamed of Clara. Not the fragile girl history had buried, but a woman standing tall by the river, her eyes burning like coals. You ended it, Clara said. You freed us. Then why do I still feel him? Evelyn asked. Because his soul isn't gone. It's bound to yours now. Clara stepped closer, her image flickering like a candle flame. Every Vale woman bore the curse of longing. You are the last. The bloodline ends with you, and so does the curse. Evelyn wanted to ask more, but Clara was already fading, her voice echoing faintly. Don't run from what you've become. Remember, even in death, love leaves its mark. The river no longer whispered. It sang. A low, haunting hum that drifted through the fog and tangled with the rustle of the willow branches. Evelyn often came here when the world felt too loud, when her new silence became unbearable. Her heart still beat, but slowly, like a dying clock. Each pulse reminded her that she wasn't what she used to be. Human warmth had faded. Colors had dulled. And yet, when she stood by the river, everything came alive again, the ripples gleaming silver, the air trembling with memory. She always brought a crimson rose. Always let it drift from her fingertips into the current. And every time, the water circled back, as though refusing to let her offering go. The town of Vale's Hollow was beginning to forget. They'd rebuilt the washed-away homes, repaved the roads, even cut down part of the forest where the flood had scarred the earth. But no one dared to touch the willow. Some said they saw a woman standing beneath it on moonless nights, pale, still, her eyes burning faintly red. Children whispered that she was a ghost. Old men muttered that she was the river's bride. Evelyn never corrected them. She barely spoke to anyone anymore. Days bled into nights, nights into centuries of thought. She didn't age. Didn't hunger as Lucien once had. But she felt him, always. The way the stars bend light through distance. The way grief bends time. Lucien Vale wasn't gone. He had become the silence between the moments. It was the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. The air was heavy, tasting of snow and memory. Evelyn walked barefoot through the frost, drawn once again to the willow. The moon hung low, its light fractured by clouds. She touched the trunk, cold, damp, and whispered. If you're still here, if you can still hear me. I never stopped waiting. The wind sighed through the branches, carrying her words away. Then she heard it. A voice like velvet and smoke, slipping through the dark. You never had to wait, my love. Evelyn froze. Her pulse stuttered, once, twice, before the night around her thickened, reshaping itself into form. And there he was. Lucien. His figure half shadow, half light, standing by the water's edge as though he'd stepped out of her memory itself. His eyes glowed faintly silver, not crimson. No longer the hunger of a predator, but the ache of something that remembered love. Evelyn took a slow step forward. You said you found peace. Lucien smiled faintly. I did. But you called me back. She shook her head. I didn't call you. You did, he said softly. Every time you came here. Every tear, every rose, every whisper in the dark, I heard it all. He moved closer. His hand reached out, hovering inches from her cheek. I was supposed to fade with the curse, Evelyn. But you wouldn't let me. Her voice trembled. You died to save me. And you lived to save what was left of me, he murmured. You gave me a home again, inside your heart. Evelyn's lips parted. So what now? Am I damned? No, he said gently. You're something neither damned nor divine. You carry what the world fears most, love that refused to die. He leaned in until their foreheads touched. His skin was cool, but beneath it pulsed something soft, the echo of warmth long lost. We were never meant to last, he whispered. Then why are we still here, she asked. Because forever remembers us. The moon broke through the clouds, spilling light over the water. For a heartbeat, Evelyn saw their reflections together, both sharp, both real. Then the river stirred. Ripples shimmered outward, glowing faintly red, like veins beneath glass. Lucien's form began to fade at the edges, light bleeding from his body. Evelyn clutched him, desperate. No, please, not again. He smiled, his eyes glistening. Don't mourn me. This isn't an ending. He took her hand and pressed it over his chest. She felt it, one single heartbeat, strong and human. It pulsed once, twice, and then vanished. That heartbeat is yours now, he whispered. So I'll never truly be gone. She kissed him, not to hold him, but to release him. Their lips met in silence, and the air filled with the sound of rushing water. The river rose, glowing, wrapping around them both. For a moment, it was as though the world held its breath. When it settled again, only Evelyn remained. She stood alone beneath the willow, tears glistening on her cheeks, but a faint smile ghosting her lips. He moved closer. His hand reached out, hovering inches from her cheek. I was supposed to fade with the curse, Evelyn. But you wouldn't let me. Her voice trembled. You died to save me. And you lived to save what was left of me, he murmured. You gave me a home again, inside your heart. Evelyn's lips parted. So what now? Am I damned? No, he said gently. You're something neither damned nor divine. You carry what the world fears most, love that refused to die. He leaned in until their foreheads touched. His skin was cool, but beneath it pulsed something soft, the echo of warmth long lost. We were never meant to last, he whispered. Then why are we still here, she asked. Because forever remembers us. The moon broke through the clouds, spilling light over the water. For a heartbeat, Evelyn saw their reflections together, both sharp, both real. Then the river stirred. Ripples shimmered outward, glowing faintly red, like veins beneath glass. Lucien's form began to fade at the edges, light bleeding from his body. Evelyn clutched him, desperate. No, please, not again. He smiled, his eyes glistening. Don't mourn me. This isn't an ending. He took her hand and pressed it over his chest. She felt it, one single heartbeat, strong and human. It pulsed once, twice, and then vanished. That heartbeat is yours now, he whispered. So I'll never truly be gone. She kissed him, not to hold him, but to release him. Their lips met in silence, and the air filled with the sound of rushing water. The river rose, glowing, wrapping around them both. For a moment, it was as though the world held its breath. When it settled again, only Evelyn remained. She stood alone beneath the willow, tears glistening on her cheeks, but a faint smile ghosting her lips. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell, rivers changed their courses, names turned to myths. But the willow remained. It stood where it always had, ancient roots wrapped around the bones of time, its silver leaves glimmering whenever the wind sighed through them. And beneath it, when the world was quiet, a woman still waited. Evelyn Vale had not aged a day. The years had softened her sorrow but not her memory. Her skin, pale as moonlight, her eyes, deeper now, holding centuries of silence and stars. Mortals came and went. Some claimed to see her wandering the woods, others swore she saved travelers lost in the fog. They called her the Lady of the Willow, the ghost bride of the river. But she wasn't a ghost. She was something else, a soul untethered, caught between life and whatever lies beyond it. When she walked, her shadow moved slower than the rest of her, like even time hesitated to touch her. Every night, she still brought a crimson rose to the river. Every night, the current circled back. It was on the 1000th winter solstice that a stranger appeared, a young historian studying the myths of Vale's Hollow. He'd heard the stories of the eternal woman, the willow, and the men she once loved. He didn't believe them. Until he saw her. She stood by the river, hair silver-white under the moon, dress whispering like smoke. When she turned, her eyes glowed faintly, not red, not human, but soft and sad, like candlelight through tears. The men froze. You're real. Evelyn smiled faintly. For now. He stepped closer. Are you? The one who loved him, she finished. Yes. The men swallowed hard. What are you waiting for? Her gaze drifted toward the water. For the river to call me home. He watched as she placed a crimson rose upon the surface. It didn't drift away this time. Instead, it sank, slow, deliberate, glowing faintly as it vanished beneath the current. Evelyn's eyes widened, and for the first time in centuries, she felt it. The heartbeat. The same one Lucien had given her, deep beneath the river's surface, pulsing like a call. The air shimmered. The willow's branches trembled. And then she heard him. It's time, Evelyn. Her lips parted. Lucien. The river rose in silver ripples. From the water stepped a figure cloaked in light, his eyes gentle, his smile exactly as she remembered. You waited long enough, he said softly. I couldn't leave, she whispered. I wasn't sure you'd remember. Forever remembers us, he said, the same words, the same promise. He reached out his hand. She took it, trembling. Their fingers met, and the world exhaled. The willow bowed low, its branches trailing into the glowing river. The wind stilled. The water turned to glass. Evelyn stepped into the current, and Lucien drew her close. For the first time in eternity, her heart beat in perfect rhythm with his. When the morning came, the historian stood alone by the river. The willow was quiet again. But two shapes were carved into the earth beneath it, side by side, hands entwined, as if they had always been there. He knelt, brushing away frost, and saw something half-buried, a locket, old and silver, glinting faintly in the dawn. Inside were two initials, etched deep by immortal hands. EV plus LV. And below them, a single phrase scratched into the metal. Love never dies. It only waits. The historian whispered their names, and the wind carried them through the trees. Evelyn and Lucien Vale. The last of the cursed, and the first to be free. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more stories.